Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I think just recapping from the last ball game, it was unfortunate because we had some opportunities. I think especially early on in the second quarter to kind of really get a hold of the ball game, and we didn't maximize our opportunities, which we knew we needed to against a team that tries to limit your possessions. And having the ball down there twice in the second quarter and coming away with no points is difficult. It's we don't hit on two deep balls. One, I think we can make the play on. Another one, we don't make the throw. We fumble. We're going to have a 1st and 10, and then ultimately we get the pick there right before half off the receiver's hands, which could have resulted in points. So, all that being said, we need to capitalize on those opportunities. And then the second thing I think that jumps out to me, we've got to do a much better job playing complementary football as a team. When we decide to go for it, which clearly, we're gonna take our shots at going for it on 4th down. That's the time when defensively we want to step up and be able to get that stop, or fake a punt, critical to get that stop. And when you fake a punt and then they score, I think 3 plays later, that has a bit of a lasting impact. And on the flip side, when we're struggling a little defensively and they put together 3 drives in a row there, that's where offensively you need to kind of step in and you start to control the tempo of the game. Control the ball a little bit to give your defense a chance to get back, and we struggled at that. So, big point of emphasis for us that way of playing, better complementary football where all 3 phases are working together to make that happen. Clearly this week, another great challenge against Iowa State, kind of eerily similar, and just kind of the trajectory of their season. Lost another tough game here Saturday, a game they probably think they should have won and could have won. So sometimes it feels like when you watch them and you look at us, you're looking in the mirror a little bit with the way some of their games have gone. Obviously, they're going to be a very dangerous opponent. Their backs are against the wall on the road. It'll be a great environment. We're going to need a really good week of preparation to get that done, to get ready for a physical ball game. It's a good football team, really well coached, a bunch of respect for Matt and the job he's done there, and so look forward to the challenge Saturday.
Coach, with the Big 12 title pretty much off the table, what is firing this team up, and how's the confidence level, because it has been a rough go?
Well, win this week. Our emphasis every week is about, the most important game is the next one, and this is no different. I think that we recognize kind of big picture where we're at, but all of our focus is on this week's ball game. When you think about big picture, there's never been a great triumph without a struggle. At some point, to triumph and to do something special, you have to struggle. And clearly, we're in the midst of the struggle. And the only way to get over that hump and to get through it is to have grit and determination and perseverance, and ultimately break through. And I believe that we will. I think that our morale's in a good spot. I think our guys believe because they see when we play quality football what it looks like. So we got to stay to the grind. We got to keep working at it. We got to keep chopping wood, and ultimately we'll break through.
Steve, when you need to appeal to each player's resolve, when you have 3 situations like this in a row, how do you do that? Do you, I know every guy's different, but when you need to get through to the whole team, how do you appeal to that resolve?
Well, I think you try to paint a picture. That is the reality of the situation. 2, you try to use some parallels maybe to different circumstances or different things that they can relate to, that ultimately gives them a really good understanding. Here's where we're at. Here's what we're doing. Here's where we're going. And I thought we had a great team meeting this morning. I think the guys really understand the message of what we're trying to accomplish. They believe in what we're doing, and I feel that. I felt it today in practice, the energy, the enthusiasm. So on that aspect of it, I feel good about the message being conveyed and them really getting it and moving forward.
Steve, how do you square the idea of you guys have enough talent to get those double-digit leads, but then falling apart at the end? And you could say, well, it's this or it's that, but there's a drop touchdown ball. There's a fumble there. I mean, these are specific moments, and it's not like some overarching thing, or is it? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I think sometimes psyche can get involved. Whether it's I'm too relaxed or I'm too tense. I mean, everybody's a little different, and my job's to try to push all the right buttons to make sure that all of our guys play with the utmost confidence and belief to make their plays, that they can do it. So that part of your statement is that's encouraging that we are capable of doing it. The other part is the challenge. How do we get to do it and sustain it and do it for an extended period of time to continue to have the success that we had early on. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword because it gives you the hope that we can, which is a beautiful thing. But it also reminds you of maybe where we've stubbed our toe the last 3 weeks. And so, you sit here at 4-4, and I mean, all of us in here can probably count on one hand, plays that we could be sitting here at 7-1, and this is a much different press conference. So I think that on that aspect of it, that's really encouraging for us, and that the players can see that, but also, man, we haven't broken through that barrier yet. We haven't broken through that wall yet, and we just got to keep grinding and stay the course, and ultimately we will, and that's when the triumph will occur.
Coach, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So in the game, and this happened several times throughout all the other games, I've noticed that the quarterback will come out and go to the left, go to the sideline, and he draws the defense to him, and it happens over and over. And is there an effect on that at the end of the game where it's almost like they designed it, they let the defense go through to wear them out?
Well, I think there's some merit to that. I think what we were looking at. In the first half of the game, I think Baylor ran upwards to 40 plays or maybe over 40 plays, which is a pretty high number. And they ran a lot of perimeter-type plays. As much as there was some stuff internally, a lot of their blocking was kind of stretching the defense, making us play lateral. A lot of the naked bootlegs by the quarterback, forcing the defensive line to redirect. So I think all those things ultimately over time can take their toll on you. I don't know if that was a direct, correlation to why we weren't playing great later. I think some of that we got to where we were getting out of our gaps again, which was unfortunate on a couple of long runs because we had played a lot of the same runs really well. And then one guy jumps out of a gap. That's how you can get creased. And so, but there was a lot of kind of plays on the perimeter, whether it was speed option, whether it was the quick throws to the perimeter, forcing guys to redirect and run, which if you can sustain the ball over time, that can add up. Whether that's the overriding theme, I don't know that for us not playing great later in the game there in the late third, early fourth quarter. But yes, to your point, it can take its toll on you if you allow it to keep happening.
Yes, Steve. I think you have one sack the last two games and given up 201 yards on the ground, the 3 losses. Basically, why is the defense so bad, and especially against the run?
Well, that's the hard part, because there's so many glimpses of us playing it really well. And the idea against especially the last 2 opponents, Oklahoma State and Baylor, they're an outside zone running football team. And the premise behind that scheme is you run that play, and the reality of it is if everybody does their job, the offensive line, the defensive line, the linebackers, the runner, it's probably about a 3-yard gain if it all works out right. How those plays hit is when somebody on the defense has bad eye control, falls back. If they send a slider back and he falls back, the ball creases. A defensive lineman gets cut out of his gap or gets reached, and then the ball gets creased. So there's a level of consistency when you're playing that style of offense to just keep doing your job and then ultimately squeezing those gaps and making your tackles, which I thought we did a lot of in the game. A couple of the runs that spit out on us that weren't option plays were when we got out of our gaps or we got cut out. The option play clearly hurt us in the game. I thought they did a nice job of checking to it when they got the premier look to do it. We needed to do a better job of kind of feathering the option with our defensive ends, so that's something definitely for us to work on this week. I think, quite frankly, our tackling has improved probably over the last month. I thought our safeties tackled well in the game. The one long run, we don't take a very good angle and we get cut back on, and that's the 32 or 33-yard touchdown run. But I think for the most part, especially coming out of the secondary, which has been something we've been working on, our safeties and our linebackers for that point have tackled a lot better than we were a month ago. I'm not saying we're where we need to be yet, but I do see the improvement there.
Coach, two quick ones at you. When you start thinking about the second half and some of the struggles, is strength and conditioning an issue at all? Is that an area that you examine? And second, if Hudson and Casey were so close all throughout the offseason, why don't we see more of a Hudson card, especially when there's some times where there's some struggles?
Yeah, we look at all those numbers. We have, all of our players wear kind of a GPS monitor. We look at the explosive movements. We look at the high velocity yards, and we don't see the drop off. So we don't feel it's a physical conditioning thing. We see the same movement and movement patterns and explosive movements based off of what their 100% is and high velocity yardage that tells us it is not a conditioning thing. On the note of the quarterback, I've said for a while, early on, I wanted to play both, to see both. I do think there's some merit to when the guy becomes the guy. I've never been in favor of kind of rotating quarterbacks and you let a guy play through it. I think Casey's done some really good things for us. Obviously, there's plays he'd love to have back, like all of us would. I would as a play caller. That's the way it goes. I think Hudson is chomping at the bit for another opportunity, which is great. He's working hard. And we'll see as we move forward if that opportunity presents itself to him.
Hey Steve, do you think teams have sort of sold out against the run against y'all recently, and how do you sort of play call around that? And then the other thing is just how long have you waited to put Keandre and Byron in on a goal line run like that?
I don't know if they're selling out. I mean, I think people are committed to stopping the run. They know we're a run-first offense. I thought one thing Baylor did a nice job of was kind of setting the edge of their defense and keeping the ball kind of contained and then funneling it back to that defensive front, which we knew the nose tackle was going to be a bit of a problem in the game. So they set the edge, the ball got funneled back in, and there just wasn't enough space. As much as that's a credit to them, I think we need to be better. I think we need to create more space, whether that's through scheme, whether that's through individual effort. And it's one thing to be blocking the man you're responsible to be blocking. It's another to move that man so you can create a bigger gap. And so that's an area for us to improve upon moving forward. And, we're always trying to find a way on the goal line to put the ball in the end zone, quite frankly. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And when you can get, I don't know, whatever that is, nearly 700 pounds of man in the backfield to create a hole for a runner, I thought it was pretty effective. So, we may see more of it.
Over here on your left, Cedric.
Hey, Steve. 2 questions. Barring injury, is Casey going to be the starter in Ames? And number 2, how's his spirit right now? Because when people lose, there's a tendency to blame the quarterback.
Sure. I would say this, say the quarterback, and I can say this from experience. When football teams win, quarterbacks probably get too much credit, quite frankly. And when teams lose, they probably get too much blame. But I also know we choose to play the position of quarterback. Nobody's forcing us to do it in Little League or in high school or in college. You choose to play the position, and by choosing to play the position, you choose to be in that arena, and you have to accept the arena that you're in. No different than being a head coach or any other position that is highly critical when things don't go well, or highly praised when things go really well. So I think Casey's in a really good spot. I think that he does everything in his power to prepare himself to get himself ready to play, and highly motivates his teammates around him. I'd anticipate Casey, barring injury, will be the starter Saturday, and I expect him to play really well.
What are your general impressions this year of how the defense and its bend don't break philosophy is paired with how your offense has fared, struggles and all?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, because that's the complementary aspect of the football piece that I'm talking about. We've done a nice job. We weren't great Saturday we may give up some yards, but generally play pretty good defense in the red area. We did it against Oklahoma State 2 weeks ago, and we had been doing that. And when you play that way, you're gonna play some snaps, right? Teams are gonna control the ball on you. And one of the issues a little bit for us as a team, we've been a little bit big little as an offense. We'll score quickly. and then we'll have 3 and outs. And so in turn, the defense isn't getting that time to review the drive, in essence, to make the necessary adjustments and or kind of catch their breath and get themselves ready to go again and recharge for the next drive. So I do think there is an aspect of complementary football that we can improve upon. And it goes both ways. It's you fake the punt, which, hey, we made the call, I made the call, it didn't work. That's when you love for the defense to really, stand up and sudden change and let's get a stop or let's hold them to a field goal, and that's a victory in itself. So that's an area that we're trying to fine-tune them into understanding kind of how the game of football works, and how the really good teams play is very complementary to from one side to the next, with special teams kind of included in there.
Steve, how disappointing is it when defenses are going to load up to stop Bijan? The receivers have to come through, and they're dropping passes, part of the turnover game. How do you challenge them? Or is there another guy coming up, Calvante, or what's your assessment of that situation?
Yeah, I think there's a level of frustration for everybody, for them included, right? Individually, if they weren't frustrated, then I'd have a real problem. Then the competitive fire in them would be concerning. So I think there's a level of frustration for everybody, because we know that the capability's there, because we see it in spurts and in flashes. I think ultimately there's got to be a level of consistency in the passing game that forces you to be fearful of how you defend us. And we flash at times. Clearly, the last couple weeks we've hit some deep balls. We hit Xavier there in the second drive, I think it was, in the ball game, or third drive maybe, for the touchdown. That should put some fear in the defense. And now it's about, can we do it efficiently and consistently to a point to where you have to kind of pick your poison how you want to defend us. And that's all part of the maturation of us as an offensive football team. We're just not quite there yet consistently enough to where the running games click in, the passing games click in, we're efficient, we're efficient on third down, where we're just not there yet. And that doesn't mean we won't get there. That's part of the grind, and that's why we work at it and do what we do and try to find the right mix of guys and making sure we're putting the right players in the best position to have success. So it's a great challenge, and it's not for lack of effort or lack of working. We got to keep grinding, and ultimately we'll get to the point to where we want to be.
Coach, we saw another Big 12 coach go down yesterday with Gary Patterson. Is this a disturbing trend to you that coaches are getting whacked in the middle of the season and not letting coaches go to the end of the year?
It is more so than anything else for the players. I know everybody wants to look at the Big 12 championship or the SEC championship or the Big 10 championship in the college football playoff, and there's so much attention and focus on that. And when you talk about that, you're maybe talking 8 teams, right? 10 teams. How many college football teams are there? Another 120, 130 programs in the country that are all striving and working towards common goals within their own locker room, within their own team. We're developing young men into grown men. We're teaching life lessons. There's great accomplishments, there's great wins, and there's things along the way. And so when coaches get let go in season, I don't know what message you're sending to their team outside of if there was a dysfunctional locker room or something like that. But what are you sending the message to the team that, hey, we're scrapping the season, we're moving on to the next one? How does that feel if I'm a senior in that locker room? There's the guy that I came to play for. I've been with him for the last 3 or 4 years. Now he's gone, so I guess they're giving up on us now. I don't know. I don't love the temperature of this, but I also know in this day and age of college football, it's becoming more and more of a business. We're trying to keep it a little bit more holistic. It's still college athletics, and we have a responsibility to these young men to groom them to be, positive citizens in society, whether they end up being football players or businessmen or fathers or husbands or whatever that may be, or coaches themselves. And so, when you lose out on that opportunity at the end of somebody's career, in the midst of their career, I think it's tough. But this is where we're going. This is where we're headed. I'm not as concerned for the coaches themselves. We're grown men. We can handle it. I'm more concerned for the players in the locker room.
Steve, can we just get your overall impressions of Brees Hall and the challenge you're going to have stopping him this
Yeah,
weekend?
he's a good player. Brees is he's kind of steady Eddie, you know. You look up and there's 100+ yards. There's another at least touchdown. I mean, I think the guy scored a touchdown in 20 or 21 straight games, which is a phenomenal stat to have. They do a really nice job offensively. You know, you think it's all about Brees Hall, but they do a really nice job. Brock Purdy is a really good football player, and he's a better athlete than you give him credit for. The tight ends cause problems, and then when you focus on all that, they're hitting the wide out, and he's creating the explosive plays, which we saw against Oklahoma State. I mean, that's kind of how they beat him, was the wideouts making the plays. So, but it starts with Brees, and it's the effectiveness and the versatility that he has. He's an inside runner, he's an outside runner, and they utilize him in the passing game really well.
Yeah, Steve, obviously you have a lot on your plate in the midst of games, but I'm curious how much attention you pay to maybe the body language on the sidelines and whether you've seen any negative body language, whether it's, guys kind of slumped in the bench or drooping heads, and if so, how do you guard against that? Is it more coach-driven, or does that have to be kind of player-led?
I do pay attention to it. I try to stay and be as aware as possible, regardless of the arena that I'm in. I would say, and I think every coach kind of mentioned this was one of our better games. I thought the energy, the intent, the communication, the rallying amongst the players on the sidelines was really, really good. I didn't feel, even when we were down 10, getting the ball and the offense getting ready to go, I saw a spirited group ready to go out there. They had a lot of belief they were going to drive the field, which they did. We didn't convert on third down and chose to kick the field goal. I'd probably love to have that third down call back. I didn't love it. That's the way the game goes. I look at every call that I make to see what I could adjust. I wish I would have given our offense and our team a better play call there on the third down to maybe score a touchdown, and where we would only need a field goal in the end. But the spirit has been really good, and I think this group is connected. They're sticking together, and that's going to pay dividends for us, whether it's this week or weeks to come or years to come.
Along those lines, Sark, they're going to hear all week about how difficult it is, Ames at night, and if you're a little shaky on your psyche. Is that part of the coaching this week, is to continue to build that confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if we keep talking about a bruised psyche, we're going to get a bruised psyche, right? I mean, there's a psyche behind it all. We got to make sure our players understand of what they're capable of doing and why they're capable of doing it. We've got enough veteran players that know what it's like to win and win big games and be in great games and do all of that. So it's a great challenge. Like the entire season has been a heck of a challenge. And I think our guys have, outside of one game in Arkansas, our guys have risen to the challenge week in and week out. Now it's the ability to sustain that when they're in the midst of the fire. And so that's really where we're at with our guys.
I want to ask you about recruiting. About a month and a half until signing day, early signing day. You guys look pretty set on defensive line commits, but offensive line, there's only 2 there. Is that just how it's going to be for the early signing day, and you're going to have to hit the portal hard? And just what is your message to offensive line recruits beyond what's on the brochure about great school, great city?
Yeah, no, I think there's a fine line in all of this with if you want to settle on linemen, we could probably get 5 linemen tonight by tonight. But if you want to recruit the best players and you want to ultimately put together a line for your future that is something that is upper echelon, upper tier in the country, you've got to recruit the best players. And, a lot of the best players haven't decided where they're going to school yet. So we feel great about where we're at. I feel great about the recruiting class in general. But what I do know is, just from a depth chart standpoint, we only signed 2 offensive linemen in last year's class, which is a real rarity in recruiting. And that, for various reasons, you have a coaching change, you have things happen when the last staff was here, when I came in, and who was available. So we only ended up signing 2 guys. So there's great opportunity moving forward for a kid coming in as a freshman because of the lack of depth there that was in last year's recruiting class. So there's no doubt, we need to sign at minimum 5 guys in this class. But we want to make sure we're signing quality players. We're not just filling a roster spot.